Okay, my friends, you know I don't care to promote stories of anti-Semitism across the world because we all see it, we all know about it. I think it's fear-mongering, but specifically when it happens in universities, I think we need to call it out because I think it's about time that we all expose and talk about the just absolute corruption that a university is. The amount of money that we spend for our children to get educated, when the reality of that education is abysmal. Look, I'm not talking about the dangers on campus and on being as what happens to students if they stand up for Israel and the pro-Palestinian movements that have mobilized on campuses. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about professors who think that they can get away with spreading things that genuinely I believed were archaic, like blood libels from what sounds like the 1600s are being taught in high-level universities. Okay, and thank God this university actually did something about it. But UCL, okay, University of College London, it's considered a very prestigious, high-level, good quality school in England. And let's listen to the recording, because a student recorded, of one of the professors giving a class.
Now, 40 years later, in about 1838, there was something called the Damascus Affair. What happened is there is a priest, Christian priest called Thomas. He disappears in Damascus during what is called the Feast of Tabernacles. So this is a Jewish feast. And the story goes, and again, these are things that you read, but again, as I said, do investigate, draw your own narrative. But the story is that during this feast, they make these special pancakes or bread. And part of the holy ceremony is that drops of blood from someone who's not Jewish, which the term is Gentile, has to be mixed in that bread. So the story is that a certain investigation was undergoing to try and find where Father Thomas is. He was found murdered, and a group of Jews who lived in Syria said that, admitted to kidnapping him and murdering him to get drops of blood for making the holy bread.
Okay, so besides the fact that's a total blood libel, that Jews eat the blood of other people, it also just shows such a lack of understanding of the Jewish religion and culture, in which it says very clearly that any blood, even your own blood, is not kosher. You are not allowed to eat it. But I'm not actually going to discuss the details of this because it's so abhorrent and so revolting. What I want to do is read the article of Times of Israel on this, okay? So the UK university acts as the researcher for teaching students anti-Jewish blood libel. Look, she thinks she's going to get away with it because she says something like, look, do your own research. But she sits there and basically says Jews kill non-Jews for their blood for their holidays. It's disgusting, okay? University College London, a prominent UK university, said on Thursday that it had launched an investigation and banned a researcher who taught an anti-Semitic blood libel in a lecture. The teacher, Dr. Samar Marcusi, surprise, surprise, she's not English properly. I mean, she might have a British citizen, but Samar Marcusi, you can get it yourself, shared the libel with a campus branch of Students for Justice in Palestine on Tuesday. The blood libel is an age-old anti-Jewish myth that falsely says Jews murdered non-Jews to bake their blood into Passover matzah. The libel is one of the most notorious anti-Semitic falsehoods and has caused repeated violence in Jews to Europe everywhere. Marcusi's lesson centered on the Damascus Affair, an incident in Syria in 1840 during which a monk disappeared and the Jewish community was falsely accused of murdering him to use his blood for Passover ceremonies. 8 leading members of the Jewish community were tortured into confessing. Small fact that she forgets to mention. Marcusi said the monk, Father Thomas, had disappeared during a Jewish feast which she identifies as Sukkot, apparently confusing the holiday with Passover. She also misstated the date of the incident, saying it took place in 1838. Again, I don't care about the incident that she's reporting. I care that this is somebody, as a university research professor teaching a class, and she's lying and not just making up blood libel facts, but not actually representing basic historic truth, which nowadays is not very hard to find. During the feast, they make these special pancakes or bread, and part of the holy ceremony is that drops of blood from someone who's not Jewish, which with the term Gentile, is to be mixed into that bread, Marcusi said, according to an audio recording shared by an advocacy group, Stand With Us. The group said one of its members went to the event and recorded the lecture. Good for them. Do investigate, draw your own narrative. Okay. Makusi's talk was called The Birth of Zionism. The university president and provost, Dr. Michael Spence, said, I'm utterly appalled by these heinous anti-Semitic comments. Anti-Semitism has absolutely no place in our university, and I want to express my unequivocal apology to all Jewish students, staff, alumni, and the wider community that these words were uttered at UCL. Spence said a statement shared with the Time of Israel. Spence said the researcher was not a current university staff, and the university reported the incident to the police, and the lecturer has been banned from campus, but didn't name Makusi. They've launched a full investigation into how this happened and have banned the student group which hosted it from holding any further events on campus pending the outcome of this. I guess that's a good thing because SJP should be banned. Regrettably, like many UK universities, we continue to confront incidents of anti-Semitism and are committing to banishing this from our campus. Yada, 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 yada. Okay. Again, what do I want to talk about? Why do I want to talk about this specifically? I don't care about the blood libel. I care about the fact, and I think more than that, I think the university did a very good job. They banned SGP as they should. They banned this woman. They were afraid to say her name because guess what? They don't want to push the narrative that it is actually the radical Islamists who are the anti-Semites. They wouldn't want anybody to say that, so they would never say her name. They wouldn't let people know what type of person said these blood libels, right? I'm willing to bet you that if it was a young Englishman, they might have been more open to it. But no, as long as he's an Islamist, she's an Islamist, they're not going to touch it. But again, this is the kind of education that your children are receiving on campus. You need to do something about it. You need to make sure that you know where you're sending your kids. Send them to Israel for all I care. I'm a massive advocate of that. Even though our universities do tend to be a little bit lefty, send them to Israel. Send them to someone that will actually share your values. Get over the prestige and remember that at the end of the day, this is the kind of things that they're being subjugated to and taught on these campuses. It's a disgrace and it's disgusting. And besides the fact that it's honestly just a little bit embarrassing at this point, enough is enough. Thank you for your attention to this matter.